I liked everything in school. I enjoyed learning things, but I had no specific bent toward science until a grandfather who died that summer of stomach cancer. And I had been trying to decide what I was going to study in college. I was just about to enter college and decided that I really had finally an aim in life. I was going to do something about cancer. Well, that meant I had to take a science, and so it was either chemistry or biology, and I decided on chemistry. So it was really very clear in my mind from then on what I wanted to do. How I was going to get there, I wasn't so sure. It really wasn't until I got out of college and started looking for a job. And it really hit me because I had done well in school. I was graduated summa cum laude. I thought, well, there's no reason somebody won't give me a try. But wherever I went, it was a depression time. It was a time there weren't many jobs to begin with, and what there were, they couldn't see any reason to take a woman. They would interview me for long periods of time, but then they would say, well, we think you'd be a distracting influence in the laboratory. Well, I guess I was kind of cute at the age of 19, but I can't imagine that I would have been a distracting influence. I would have been so busy working that, but anyway, it was very discouraging. I said, well, I'm going to have to earn a living. I guess I better go to secretarial school. And so I started secretarial school, and I went for 6 weeks. And just at that point, someone offered me a job as a lab assistant in a school of nursing for 3 months. It was a trimester. So I dropped secretarial school and took this 3-month job, and then I was out of a job again. But once I tried secretarial school, I knew that I wouldn't ever stay there. It was only 6 weeks was about as much as I could take. I started going at night out to Brooklyn Polytechnic Institute. For 2 years, I went 3 nights a week from Westchester County all the way out to Brooklyn, back to the Bronx where I lived. And I was happily thinking, well, in about 10 years, I'll have my doctorate. Then the dean said, no, you can't do that because we want you to come full time. If you're serious about it, you'll give up your job. And I said, no way. I'm not going to give up that job. It's the one I've really been looking for. And I discussed it with Dr. Hitchings, and he said, you don't need to get a doctorate. You can do it all without. I'm not sure I believed him at the time, but I decided to take the chance, so I never went back. I think that my social life really took a hiatus in about 1941, actually before I went to Burr's Welcome, because of the death of someone I loved very much. And after that, I sort of put myself into my work in a way perhaps that I wouldn't have otherwise. I might have gotten married, and it just didn't happen because the person I was engaged to died of a disease that could have been cured by penicillin, but there was no penicillin. And that was another lesson I learned, how important some discoveries can be in life-saving. And years later, thinking back on it and saying, if only there had been penicillin. And it was a good lesson. I think you have to have infinite patience to be a scientist. I used not to realize that, because I remember telling someone once that I didn't want to be a teacher because I didn't have the patience. And they laughed and said, and so you want to be a scientist? And I said, yes. I didn't even think it was funny at the time. I now think it was very funny. Just at that time, we got interested in immunology. We got interested because somebody who'd written to us for 6-mercaptopurine looked at it in the immune response in a rabbit and let us know that it inhibited the immune response. So he came and saw us and said, you know, you have some compounds that could be very interesting in the immune response. We listened and said, okay, we'll set up a screen that will try to determine whether some of these anti-leukemic compounds have activity on the immune response. And lo and behold, this one compound that I had made, which was equivalent in leukemia, was better on the immune response. Then along comes a young surgeon who's read the paper about the rabbit antibody response and says, you know, I tried 6-mercaptopurine on kidney transplants in dogs, and it really prevented the rejection for quite a long time. Do you have anything that might be better? Well, we don't know, but here, take this compound. It looks better in mice. So he goes off on a fellowship to the Peter Bent Brigham Hospital in Boston, tries it, and finds it definitely is better. And the next thing you know, it's preventing rejection of kidney transplants in man. I think I'm most proud of the fact that so many of the drugs have really been useful in saving lives. I've run into people whose lives have been saved, and the kind of satisfaction that you get from having someone come up and say, my child had acute leukemia and your drug saved him, or my little girl had herpes encephalitis and she's now cured, she's back at school, she's doing very well. People told me that she might be mentally affected, but she's not. Run into people who've had kidney transplants for 20 years who are still taking the drug. And I don't think anything else that happens to you can match that kind of satisfaction.